Hello, and welcome to Leadership as a Philosophy, Not a Checklist video discussion 23. And this is an amalgamation, a collection. So this is Office Space, the Office UK, and the Office from the United States. Now, why were these so popular, and why does everybody talk about them? Well, because they got the office environment exactly right. I obviously loved all of them. I've watched The Office UK several episodes, and I watched the US several episodes. And to me, it was just difficult to watch because me being focused on leadership, I couldn't stand the bosses, right? None of those guys should have had jobs. But we're going to go through it anyway because it's sort of a gimme, right? It sort of seems like it should be a cop out or something that's kind of easy to do. But now we've got a method to do the evaluation. In other words, we know why we can say that these guys were what they were, right? Okay, so as always, we start off with, moving this again. As always, we start off with the archetypal leadership model. So like I said, this is now the test. You can use this to see if somebody's got the ability or not, either before or after. So the big 5 personality traits, everybody knows those by now. These are the ones that I think meet most leaders because you hear about all of them when you're talking about other leaders. Then the talent is the ability to attune competence and environmental hierarchies in pursuit of a goal. The characteristics, right? You have to have positive characteristics to have good leadership. And then negative versions of those, you get bad leadership. And then we have the 4 archetypes. And these 4 archetypes have been echoed throughout history. So the Tao Te Ching's thousands of years old. This Army Field Manual is from 1983. This Field Marshal von Moltke is from the 1800s. And then this is the archetypal model, which is what I think how we can do these. So the types that we just go on, we're just going with the Tao Te Ching ones, even though you could use these others. It's barely known, which is the best. Loved and praised, second best. Third is feared. And the 4th is despised. And so I think that the barely known one has good character and talent. And so you don't really know what they're doing because they're not running around taking credit and being megalomaniacs. Good character and no talent, at least they're not goofing up. That's a good person in charge, but they're not a leader because they don't have the talent. Then somebody who has bad character and a talent is one that's feared. And the one that is bad character and no talent is another person in charge, but they're despised. All right. So let's go through, right? So everybody knows the guy from Office Space. Now, why would you think that he was a good or a bad leader, right? So he has 0 empathy. He doesn't have any integrity. I'm pretty sure he doesn't have any empathy, and he's not paying attention to anything because he doesn't realize how annoying he is to people. I've heard people say, well, at least he wasn't yelling and screaming. Yes, but if you watch the movie, everybody universally despises this guy. It's easy. And of course, these are all fictional characters, but they got it exactly right. So everybody despises this dude who's the leader, and he's the meme, you know. I'm going to need you to come in on Saturday. So the problem is, at no point does he ever explain, here's the problem, here's why I need you to do it. He just makes people miserable. He just is abusive. He just does all these terrible things, right? So we go to the next one. This is the Office UK, Ricky Gervais, amazing, right? So again, he's the sort of guy that it's all about me. He doesn't care about his people. He dodges responsibility, completely argues all the time. Anytime there's any sort of thing about how amazing leadership is, he's talking about himself. So it doesn't have any of the good characteristics, humility, integrity, empathy, and he doesn't have the talent. Because if you watch the show, of course it's a show, but the way that the people are in the office, if they had a decent boss, they'd have been way more productive. So the people are fine, but he's not attuning the competence and environment in pursuit of the goal. The environment is all about him. Well, and it's the same with Steve Carell in The Office for the United States. Same deal, right? It's exactly the same thing. And so all three of these guys, why does everybody laugh? Well, I can't stand to watch too much of it because I dislike it so much what they're doing to their people. So lessons learned, all right? So terrible example of people in charge. Are they leaders? No, they're people in charge that really shouldn't be, and they never get fired. There's always these threats and rumors and stuff, and they somehow are able to weasel their way out of it all the time. But they have poor character, right? Their environments are a disaster. Everybody's got this cloud over their head. Oh, it's all about the boss. It's if you watch them, it's a great show, but the environment isn't great because nobody can make mistakes. Nobody can do, nobody can try to grow. Employees are miserable. People in charge are unclear on tasks, and then I need to get somebody to do this thing that I don't want to do. So you end up with a bunch of redundancies and a bunch of people not doing stuff. There's a real good example of that in Office Space, where there's a guy whose only job it is to take one thing from some software developers to give it to somebody else, and he does it digitally, which means his job is just not needed. But at some point, somebody said, "Oh, we need this task," Complete lack of character with business. Now, the thing that I haven't talked about very much, those four characteristics are how the leader operates in the business. Because sometimes you have found people that are really great leaders, but their personal life's kind of a mess, right? When it comes to how they do on their own, they don't have the most humility. They don't have the most integrity. But you give them a team and give them a goal, and suddenly they have all those characteristics. But their character's terrible. They're always lying. They're always weaselly. He just makes my skin crawl. We talk about jerking the employees around on the weekends and doing all these extra things for no reason. Anytime in the office, U.S., all the time, there's somebody has some question. Everybody in the conference room, so completely disrupts everybody's day to deal with issues that he caused. Lack of adherence to any standards. The standards only apply when he wants to enforce them. Any one of these guys, they don't apply to themselves, And there's all sorts of paperwork and bureaucracy. Everybody knows the famous TPS reports, but there's always this, where's my documents? Where's my this? Where's my that? If they were a good leader, they wouldn't need a bunch of that crap, or they would know why it was late. Zero positive example to emulate. So each one of these people has a sycophant that is latched on to the person in charge to try to further their career, and they're not good either. So that's what happens when you set the example and say, well, here's what it takes to be in charge. Then everybody that wants to be in charge starts trying to be that person. So you put a corrupt megalomaniac, no character, lie, all that stuff. People are going to try to emulate that so they can get promoted, right? So then what's the end result? Well, the end result's the same. So the consultants are brought in to do what the people in charge should have been doing the whole time. There's the famous Bobs. If you've watched the movie, you know what I mean. And so the two Bobs are asking each employee what they do and then determine who needs to get fired. Well, the problem is, if you were an actual leader, you would know what everybody was doing and whether or not you needed to find something else for them to do. Right? I mean, that's what leadership should be. It's not, I need to get some people. If you're hiring a consultant to come in and tell you what's going on in your business, it's not the business. This is an example. I vaguely remember this episode. I think that they have this guy here on the right is a consultant that was brought in to help with team building, and Ricky Gervais' character takes over and starts singing camp songs and makes it completely all about himself, completely derails everything, screws everything up. So even though he was trying to do the right thing and bring in somebody to fix it, it's useless, right? But again, if you have good leadership, you shouldn't need consultants, right? I know that sounds bad because I'm starting a leadership consulting business. But the problem is I'm not going to come in and say fire a bunch of people. I'm going to come in and say, You might have a leadership problem if you've got a bad environment and all these things. Here's another example from the office, United States. Like I said, somebody asks some questions or has something that they want to argue about. So he pulls everybody in the conference room. They're all in the conference room. And then he blathers for a while. Complete waste of time. Disrupts work. Yet. And so these are great examples. Now, the problem is, this is the thing that I asked the question. Why do we have 3 versions of this since the 99, I think, is when The Office came out. Office Space. Well, because it's everywhere and it resonates. And I'm sure the reason that these were so popular is because there's a bunch of people, employees from all around the world, that are watching these shows going, oh gosh, it's just like my environment. And so they're empathizing. They're enjoying looking at these people suffer. It makes me mad, right? And so if you think about it, why are these people allowed to be in charge? Why? As we've talked about it before, is it cowardice? It's you walk into a place and everybody's miserable and hates their job. That's not the people. People will work. So, you've heard me say it before. My whole goal with what I've been trying to do with this is to try to make it so that people are less miserable at work. Work's hard enough. It shouldn't be more difficult because you've got a tool as a boss, male or female. Right? So you've got some tyrant in charge, somebody that's completely awful. They should be gone. Why aren't they? Well, I've said it before. I think it's cowardice. Because there's every other reason to get rid of somebody. All right, so bonus. So great example. I forgot about this part. So when the Bobs, they found the guy, the Mr. Swingline Stapler, if you know, the one that says he's going to burn down the building. Well, he basically got laid off 5 years ago, and they messed up and didn't cut his pay or stop his paycheck. Well, nobody told him he was laid off. He's still coming to work. So they just cut his pay and say, we're not going to pay him. He's just going to stop showing up. Typical weaselly, spineless person in charge way to do things, right? We're just going to eliminate people. Not going to sit down and talk to them. Not going to give them any sort of thing. Just, you're gone. All right. Same system or process applied to every employee. So this is the bonus example I like. And you probably know this one. So this is from Office Space, and this is Jennifer Aniston's character working at the fast food joint. Not the fast food joint. At the, I don't know what sort of restaurant you call them. But she's supposed to have little buttons and pins and stuff on her uniform, and she has, the standard is 20. Well, she gets talked to twice by the boss because 20 is the minimum standard, but she should have more. Look, if it's the standard, it's the standard. And so make the standard what you want to have happen. This is a great leadership lesson. And then if you accept any less than the standard, that's the new standard, right? So there's one guy that's he's super over the top, that's got 37 pieces of flair, and the boss is comparing her to him. She's like, well, what do you want, more? He goes, no, I want you to express yourself. And so she finally expresses herself by quitting. But it's a perfect example, right? If here's the standard, then that's it. That's it. I was at a place where they were a little complicated about the uniform. And I said, look, for holidays, you can't come in dressed differently, but you can wear a necklace, you can wear a head thing. If I say you need to be in approved uniform in 30 seconds, you should be able to do it without having to undress. So in other words, if you're wearing a sweater should be able to pop up, it should be buttoned down, something, so you can get into uniform the right way, but we can accessorize. But the standard was the uniform standard, right? I used to enjoy when I was in the Army, because it changed several times, but they used to make us carry gloves around. But there were different units where they wouldn't let us wear them because they didn't want us to look like I don't know what. But we had to carry them. Dumb as anything. But the thing is, right, the standards have to apply to everybody, and that's integrity. If you're going to have the minimum is 20, you've got 20. Good job. If you want more, make it more. right? You're always going to have somebody that's going to go over more. But the other thing is make sure that your standards make sense. If you've got 500 standards, who's checking on those? Right? You've got 5. Well, it's easy to check on 5, and then they're the same, and they make sense. So usually the rule is don't make up a new rule. All right. Anyway, just wanted to talk about that because if we look, like we said, that's back to our archetypal leadership model. You can now use this to look. So all three of those bosses, what were they, right? Were they barely known? Nope, everybody hated him. Were they loved and praised? Nope, everybody hated him. Were they feared? Nope, everybody just loathed them. They despised them. So they were a person in charge. Bad character, no talent. Right? Every single one of them, because they didn't have the talent to do anything. They just were in charge. And that's how bad things could get. You see that there's 3 different series over 20-something years, that show you how bad it can get if you just have people in charge instead of leaders. Okay, so that was the end of that. I don't have anything else. Oh, I didn't space these out. Sorry. Anyway, you got Office Space, the Office UK, and then the Office here. So here's when they were distributed and launched and all that sort of thing. And as always, not sponsored. So none of these guys are paying me. But fun to watch, unless if you're like me, you're a leader type, then you hate it because that person should be fired, the boss. That's all that. And as always, I appreciate your attention and I hope you have a great day.
Yeah.